Welcome to the Lights Lounge, your weekly home for all things Las Vegas Lights FC. We'll be here every single week in 2025 per usual. You can join us for a deeper dive into everything that happens on the pitch, including match previews and analysis alongside a new guest every single week. Coming up, the Lights are headed on the road for the second week in a row, this time for a league match at San Antonio FC. Alongside me today to chat about how the team moves forward into a critical summer stretch, I have journeyman midfielder Patrick Leal. Pat, welcome to the lounge.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I feel like journeyman is usually a veteran term, but we were speaking right before we came on that you've been all over the place, Portugal, US, Italy, quite a few teams on that transfer market page. So we'll dive into that a little bit today. But before we get to your journey, let's talk about the recent games. So we're going to start with a rough week last week. We didn't pod last week, so we didn't talk about Phoenix, and we haven't talked about Sacramento yet. So 1-0 loss to Phoenix, which you started, a 4-0 loss away to Sacramento, which you were on the bench for and didn't sub onto the game. Just for you, looking back on those two games, do you have any main takeaways from the recent stretch of tough results?
Yeah, I mean, especially against Phoenix, I thought we moved in the right direction. We played super well. I thought it was one of our best games. And I think the season and life is a journey. And when you have progress, and we had progress as a team in that game, and I think there was a lot of positives you could take away. Obviously, it sucks losing, but no need to panic and freak out, because I think there are a lot of positives to take from both games.
Yeah, I think especially the Phoenix game, I think the team's obviously super unlucky to lose that one 1-0. Val has a penalty at the end that if he scores, you walk away with a 1-1 draw and you maybe feel a little bit better happier about it. Yeah, absolutely. But I think performance-wise, especially the second half, the team's really pushing for that equalizer throughout. Finally earns the penalty, but just can't quite get it across the line. And sometimes that's football, right? And I think for me too, just to chat a little bit about perspective, I know I've done this a little bit on the pod, and I think I'll preface it with the fact that you never want to lose 4 games in a row, right? Like,
of course not.
You never want to be in this situation. But looking back at 2024, when the Lights finished in 4th place, hosted a first round game, and could have been as high as second up to the final day had they won on the final day. 3 wins, 7 losses, 3 draws on this date, at this point in the season. That was good for 12 points in 10th place. This year in 2025, it's a little weird because we've lost some games for the Jägermeister Cup, so it's a little less games, but 3 wins, 5 losses, 3 draws, also 12 points, 1 place higher in 9th place. So at the end of the day, for you guys looking at that, does that give you encouragement that everything's so tight that you just get hot and anything can happen?
Yeah, I think perspective is important. You could look at 2 weeks ago, we had 3 wins in a row. So if it could change negatively that quick, then it could change positively that quick.
Right.
So I think perspective is super important. Not giving up, not having a poor mentality after losing 4 games is super important. And being able to look at what happened last season and a bunch of other examples should help us to keep going and to hopefully have a good season. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's talk about you individually as we start to look ahead to what needs to happen against San Antonio to get the team back on track. I guess let's start with your role on the field in that midfield pivot. The team's changed formations a little bit, sometimes 3 in the back, sometimes 4 in the back, but your role, I think, looks pretty similar in a double pivot regardless of formation. For you, looking at improving, trying to win games, what are you trying to bring to that midfield pivot individually to get better results?
I think sometimes I can improve on my leadership with like speaking and my voice and stuff, especially when we're defending, speaking out, pressing, going. Just little stuff like that, I think could help me and help the team.
Yeah. What's it been like? There's been quite a few different midfield partners for you. Some injuries, some visa availability. Dowda Peters coming in. Rory was pretty consistent, but then hit with an injury. Val is dropping back and forth between playing further forward and playing deeper. Christopher Pearson's partnered you a couple times. There's a lot of competition in the group, and there's a lot of chopping and changing. What's that been like?
I think every player on our team is good, and I have a good relationship with on and off the field. So whoever I play with, I'm comfortable with, and I'm confident that we'll get the job done.
Yeah.
But whoever it is, I'm happy with who's beside me.
Yeah. Does your role change at all? I mean, like for example, against El Paso 3 games ago now, you got an assist, found yourself much higher up the field, created a turnover higher up, dished it to Johnny, and you're playing with Christopher at that time, who's maybe more of a defensive-minded guy.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
so how does your role change?
Well, yeah, that's more of a tactical change, just playing with one pivot and putting me higher up the field, which just allows me more freedom to attack, and then I luckily got an assist.
Yeah. Are you more comfortable like in that? That's maybe more of a traditional box-to-box role for you.
Yeah. For me, I would say I'm more comfortable, kind of more freedom going where I would like, and kind of crashing the box and joining the offense for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's always a balance because playing with a true double pivot, 2 defensive midfielders gives a lot of solidity defensively.
Right.
So you're sacrificing that a little bit to be getting further forward in those scenarios. As zooming out 30,000 foot view as a team, what do you think the team needs to improve, specifically looking at the San Antonio match this weekend?
I think against Phoenix, we were good with the ball, very good with the ball, but I think we could be better with the ball, especially keeping the ball in the opposing team's half. I think a lot of times it's like go, 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 and sometimes we should be calm, relax, circulate it, and maybe find a better option instead of going right away. But other than that, I would say that looking at the Phoenix game, everything else was pretty positive.
Yeah, I think Val mentioned that in post-game media availability a little earlier in the season, but he said something along the lines of like, it feels like we're always looking for that golden pass immediately. And sometimes it just needs to be put your foot in the ball. You might have like a one-on-one on the wing, but there aren't a lot of numbers arriving in the box. So as a winger, put your foot in the ball, cycle possession, find a numbers up scenario, get more numbers forward.
Yeah,
and just a little bit of patience in those scenarios.
Yeah, patience with the ball. More patience with the ball,
and picking up second balls as well when little turnovers happen, so you can keep them pinned,
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see what happens on San Antonio on the weekend. Good opportunity for an away game. There'll be more away games. There's a pretty front-loaded home schedule here on the front of the year. So let's change gears though, because as I referenced off the top of the pod, you have a really interesting journey. You've been all over the place. And before we get there, let's wind back all the way to childhood. Grew up in Newton, Massachusetts, which is a suburb just outside of the Boston area. I've run the Boston Marathon a few times.
Have you?
Yeah, so I know Newton just for the Newton Hills and Heartbreak Hill.
Heartbreak Hill, yeah. I live very close there.
Okay.
Right there.
Did you grow up going to the marathon? Like, would you guys pop out? So that's amazing.
With all my friends,
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so what was it like outside of the Boston Marathon, growing up in that suburb outside of Boston?
Yeah, I think it was like a very safe, nice neighborhood. Like you play in play in the park. I lived right next to a park. Very suburby. You know. But yeah, I had a great childhood. And it was really fun. I had great friends. So.
You and your twin brother, right, Matthew? Was it just you and your brother? Were you the only two?
Yep.
Okay.
Just you and my brother.
What is that? Fraternal or identical?
Fraternal.
Okay. What's it like growing up with a fraternal twin brother? There's got to be just like button heads, competitiveness,
competitiveness for sure.
Yeah.
Like we'd go play basketball or anything, and it always ends up in a fight because we're all, we're both super competitive. Maybe me a little bit more than him. But I was never alone.
Yeah.
So
did you grow up playing on the same like youth soccer teams and all of that kind of stuff? At what point did your guys' paths diverge? Was it when you joined the Revolution Academy or before that?
We both joined the Revolution Academy, and then we both moved to Portugal at 14.
Okay.
We played for the club called Belenenses.
Yeah.
In Portugal, and then we split up when I moved to Sporting.
Okay. So growing up playing with your brother, you were always playing in midfield. Was he also playing in midfield?
Well, I was more of like a striker winger.
Okay.
And he was always a midfielder.
Okay.
But then I dropped back a little bit, and he dropped back a little bit as well.
I feel like that tends to be how it goes. I also played midfield in high school, and then I went to college, and it's like, okay, you're right back now. You tend to move
going.
backwards. Okay, so you grow up. Were you playing like youth soccer, local rec soccer? At what point did it become, okay, I'm getting serious?
Probably when we were like 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
When my dad created a team called Newton United.
Okay.
Newton. And it was my brother and my friends. And yes, when we were 5, he started it, and it got serious from then.
Wow. Okay. And then you progress through the years and you end up joining New England Revolution at like 13 14 years old.
12, 13.
Playing for the U14s. Was that do you remember that? I mean, you're a teenager, you're like breaking into that middle school, coming up on high school. Was that a big deal? Like, man, I've joined an MLS academy.
Yeah, it was definitely, I had a transition period for sure when I first joined. It was hard to gain my confidence back because there was a larger group of people coming from a larger group, like a larger area.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I had to like really learn how to,
You go from being a big fish in a small pond to a small fish in a very big pond.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially at 13,
Yeah. Do you have any specific memories of like walking into a first training session where you're like, ooh, like that's the level? Or
no, nothing like that's the level. It was just, I was just always in my head when I was younger about like, like, oh, what's going to happen? Am I good enough? Like just at 13, you have doubts about things,
Yeah. Is that something you feel like you've grown out of?
Yeah,
like
for
as
sure.
you progress through the various academies you've been in?
I've been so many different places. You learn how to, meet new people. And
at a certain point, you stop caring what people think about you.
Exactly.
You're like, all right, I mean, like they're either going to think I'm good enough or I'm not. Like, it's all good. As you played that first year in the Revolution Academy, any specific memories from that time, developing, playing an interesting tournament? Or
I think getting called up to the U14 national team was a proud moment, even though it was only U14 national team. But I remember at the time, being very proud and it gave me more confidence and more reason to keep going and to maybe there's something here,
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of like senior national team versus youth national team, like the opportunity to represent your country and pull on that crest, it's just
right.
It's special regardless, but especially as a 13, 14 year old, you're like, whoa, this is
then it was even
insane.
harder when it was the entire country going to a national team.
Talk about big fish in a small pond.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's fascinating. So, as your time at the Revolution comes to an end, you're now toying with the idea of going to Portugal.
Correct.
Your dad is Portuguese or of Portuguese descent?
Was born in Portugal.
Yep. So you have your European passport. Yep. So it's always this option because for the folks that don't know, you can't transfer over to Europe without the European passport
before you're 18.
Before you're 18, right? So you can't just not anyone in the academy can just jet off to Portugal and join anything.
And it was still a lot of paperwork, even though we had the European passport.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work.
So how did it come about?
I moved from Newton United to a club called Vallejo, which was a bigger club team when I was 12 years old, before I moved to Revolution. And we played a tournament called the Iber Cup in Portugal. And I guess we did well there. And some teams there were some scouts and they asked, do you want to come? And we thought about it and we were like, yeah, why not?
Wow. So you're looking at going. And I think I saw that when you guys moved, obviously you joined Belenenses first.
Yep.
And your mom went with you and your brother.
Yes.
And dad stayed home.
He did.
What was that from a personal standpoint? What was that transition like?
Yeah, I mean, leaving home, leaving family, friends, just what you're used to was very difficult for me. Maybe more than others, honestly. Because I had such a good childhood. I had such great friends I still talk to today. And I had such a great family that it was so hard to leave them. But the passion and love for soccer was even bigger.
Yeah, it's a big call to make at 14 years old.
I mean, at the time, before I went, it was the easiest thing in the world. I was like, yeah, let's go. Why would I not want to go?
It's so glitz and glam.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it was very difficult the first couple years moving over. Obviously you learn and
yeah,
it gets easier. But
I mean, the reality hits you. Like it's like, oh, this is gonna be great. Like I'm gonna be the next Christian Pulisic, or whatever it is.
Exactly.
You know, you're 13 years old. Like you're allowed to dream.
Right.
But then you get there and the reality of living in a new country and not having any friends.
This is difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
Going to training and not really being able to speak the language right away and stuff. It was kind of,
Did you speak any Portuguese before?
So my grandparents only speak Portuguese.
Okay.
So when I was younger, I lived closer to them before I moved to Newton. So I was fluent, is what I was told. Then I started to lose a little bit of it because you just don't, you don't speak it.
Yeah.
So I had bits and pieces, but then of course when I moved, it stuff comes back to you and you kind of learn it again.
I mean, that makes the transition a lot easier versus just like learning it from scratch.
There was a couple other people who came through Vallejo actually.
Yeah.
And they didn't speak any Portuguese, and they obviously had it harder because it's even more difficult to communicate on and off the field.
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes it very difficult.
Okay, so then you're at Belenenses. You arrive there. You're playing for probably the U15s at that point for them?
U14, I believe.
U14
Yeah, U14.
still. Okay, was the environment coming from the Revolution Academy into the European system, was there something that we were like, whoa, this is really different, or the training was at a different level?
I think at that age, the level, like skill-wise, talent-wise, there's really no difference. But I think the history, the culture, and like the mentality of Europe is totally different, where it's like it's not necessarily every man for themselves, but it's like you either figure it out or leave, you know? And here people are a lot more coddled and it's okay. But there it's like you either rise up or leave, Yeah. And that was, I felt that when I was 14, like even like these players at 14 were like, scream, like, let's go, screaming at me. And I'm like, oh my God, like what did I come into, Yeah. So that I noticed a difference, but skill and talent wise, I don't think there's any difference.
Yeah, very much the same. It's just the environment that you're in. Yeah. So you spend a year there before the opportunity to go to Sporting CP comes up. Yeah. So how did that transition happen?
Yeah, I couldn't play for the first 6 months because of paperwork. So I only played the last 2 months of the season. And we went to a tournament in Madeira.
Okay.
And then I got scouted from playing the last 2 months. Yeah. From a scout named Philippe Antunge, who's a good friend of mine now. I trialed at Sporting that year. Then the next year I got signed.
Okay. That's obviously a big jump, right? Because you've got Belenenses, were they a first division team at the time, or
yeah, they were.
They were, but still a much smaller fish
Not like
in the big scheme of things. And then all of a sudden you have the opportunity to go to Sporting, which is where Cristiano Ronaldo comes through, and
it's even bigger. So you can see each year it's like a new challenge of bigger things,
And speaking about like the history and the pressure on it, okay, all of a sudden I'm at Sporting, now there's even greater expectations placed on me.
And you're playing with better players and everything, so.
Yeah, and this is the point where you and your brother's path diverges, right? So is Belenenses close to where Sporting is?
Yeah, so there are 4 main teams in the Lisbon area. You have Benfica, Sporting are like the top 2, and then you have like Estoril Praia and Belenenses are like the 2 below them. Yeah, academy wise. Yeah. So you like they would give the hardest challenge to Sporting and Benfica, but you'd still expect Sporting and Benfica to beat those teams.
Of course. Yeah.
So Belenenses is still a good academy.
Okay, got it. And so your brother stays and you go.
No, he actually went to another academy.
Okay, got you. Yeah. But also still in Lisbon?
Yes.
Okay, so you're still both living with your mom in Lisbon, just going to separate trainings and separate schedules and stuff like that. Was that jarring? Like not training and playing with your brother for the first time?
Honestly, I think the way we looked at it was we're both going to be seen as our own people. Yeah. And as our own players. So we kind of enjoyed it, because like I'm a different player than he was, sometimes we'd get lumped together. So I think we took it as a positive.
Yeah. I'm sure that can become frustrating at a certain point where you're like, oh, you're just the Leal brothers. You're not like Patrick and Matthew.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so you get into Sporting. When you transition to Sporting at this point, do you feel like you have mastery over the language and can kind of jump straight in, or were you still struggling?
I was still struggling a little bit.
Okay, so what was the transition in there like? Because you jump in. How old are you at the point where you go to Sporting?
15.
Okay, so you jump into like the 15s and 16s. Yeah. I keep asking if there's a jump in level. Was there a jump in level, or was there a jump in pressure, or anything like that?
I think it's a lot more mental than physical or talent wise than anything else. At least for me personally, I've always been able to keep up like under like speed of play and like technique and stuff. It was always like you said, like the feeling of, oh my God, now it's at Sporting, and you know what I mean? Yep. Being in a new country, not really being able to call my parents every day, kind of not having that support, it's difficult for a 15-year-old.
Absolutely.
So that was always my struggle. But the talent wise and the everything else, I never thought like obviously there's some players where you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
Nuno Mendes just won Champions League,
Yeah, absolutely.
You
Were there any players you were playing with at that time that are like that people would recognize?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. So I'm an 03, and there's a couple 02s, 04s, 03s as well.
Yeah.
I'd say there's Youssef Chermiti. He is on Everton now.
Okay.
Mateus Fernandez. He's on Southampton. Renato Vega. He's a good friend of mine, or at least when we were in the academy together.
Yeah.
He plays at Juventus now.
Mm-hmm.
Nuno Mendes. He played with the older age group most of the time, but I trained with him a good amount of times.
Yeah.
Champions League. So there's that's the level of Rafael Leão just left the academy right before he joined. So it was difficult. I would say imposter syndrome definitely hit for sure.
Yeah.
Some random kid in America. And also when I went to Portugal, they're telling Americans suck. You guys can't play, all these things. It's a psychological battle every day to show up. You know what I mean?
That's the other thing too. I guess you're dealing with the stigma at the time, and still there's still that stigma of he's an American player, so he's probably athletic and whatever. But
exactly.
Screw it.
I think if you're a good player, you're a good player. So if you're in Europe and you're a good player, doesn't matter.
Okay.
But you don't get the benefit of the doubt right away.
Sure.
Which if you're a good player, then who cares? You know. But it's still a mental battle to deal with at that age. It's maybe easier for me now, but being at 15, hearing these things and then showing up and then getting screamed at, I don't even know what you guys are saying to me. It piles. Then I can't call my parents for support. Then it all starts to pile up and it makes it difficult to to play well.
Yeah, you mentioned your parents there. Was there anyone during this time that was a big mentor to you, or someone that you would call when you were having a tough time?
Just my mom and dad.
Yeah.
But for soccer wise, especially my dad.
Okay.
Anything about soccer, I talk to him because he also has a very good understanding of the game as well. So he taught me everything.
Yeah.
So
he's
when
the one you pick the phone up, you're venting this crap happened
about
at
soccer.
today.
Yeah. So if it's about soccer, I'll vent to my dad. If it's about life, I'll vent to my mom.
Nice. Amazing. You're at Sporting through the U19s, I think. So I mean, how many years are you at Sporting then?
3.5.
3.5.
4.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the longest stop you've had to this point in your career. How do you think that's a critical time in your development from very 15-ish to 19-ish
very
age?
Important, yeah.
How do you feel like you improved as a player, and how do you feel like Sporting helped you in that time?
I think they really helped with teaching the game. And just little details, little things where it's if you're here, you have to be here. If someone's here, you should play here. Just making things natural for you, so when you play, you just feel comfortable being on the field. Okay.
And you navigated the pandemic during this time as well, right? What was that like, hitting the pandemic during your later academy years there?
Yeah, I mean, it was less games and just more trainings, which everyone did. But I was able to go home for 3 months because they stopped it for 3 months. So, when the pandemic hit, I just was able to go home. So I was actually quite happy about it.
Is that the first time you'd gone home, or had you been taking vacations?
I was only home for 3-4 weeks for the summer, and then a couple days to a week for Christmas, and that's it.
Oh, wow.
For 6 years.
Man. So, and that's other than your dad maybe traveling out there, that's
I would have people visit, but
it'd
be only for a week maybe.
Exactly. And then your mom out there the whole time through this?
No, actually she was the first 2 years lived with me and my brother, and then there was a year when I was U17 when me and my brother just lived together, and my parents lived at home.
Okay.
Which that was difficult. Or you have to, be an adult.
Got to cook.
Yeah, exactly.
The first time.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of chicken and rice. That was difficult to deal with as well.
Yeah. Okay. So then it's Venezia.
Yes.
So you've been in Portugal for 5-6 years at this point, and then you wind up in Italy. How?
Yeah, I mean, I was at Sporting the longest because I think it was the hardest to think about maybe I should leave. When I was getting older, I wasn't getting the opportunities with the first team that I thought I deserved or that I wanted to continue my career. So then I talked to my agent, and my agent at the time had a contact at Venezia and said, would you like to trial here? And I was like, sure.
Yeah.
Because my thought process was Sporting was one of the best academies in the world. I go to a smaller academy. I become the big fish in a small pond.
Of course.
Yep. And and it worked out.
Yeah.
So that my thought process was, so I trialed and they liked me after a week. And
were you trying anywhere else, or were there any other options at that time?
I mean, my agent was supposedly talking to a bunch of teams, but Venezia is just the what happened.
Was like kind of the only real
transpired.
Like tangible one. That, Okay. So then you wind up there. That's August of 2021. So at this point, you're speaking fluent Portuguese, Italian. Did you? I mean, that like all over again. You're having to learn a language.
Well, but I was older, and it was easier to like experience anything with experience. It was easier to deal with not speaking the language and stuff. And I put more effort into learning the language and stuff. And I will say, at one point, I was actually pretty good. I've now lost it because I just haven't spoken in 2 years.
Right.
So when Coach Notarino came, he was like, "Come stai?" And I was like, "Bene."
You're like, please don't ask me another question in Italian.
Exactly. So I think it's definitely in there.
Yeah. So
if I get reminded, and if I moved to Italy again, I think I would learn how to speak it again and like be okay, especially on the field. Because that's the first thing you learn. When I was in Portugal and Italy, is you learn the on the field stuff. Because off the field stuff
it's completely different.
It's completely different.
There's
you could
soccer
get
Italian, and then there's real
Italian. Yeah, you could get by on the field.
Yeah. It's the same in English. Like, there's like a lot of like
There's
a lot of like weird phrases that you say on the field that hold no meaning outside of the soccer field.
I mean, you could say pass the ball. You know?
Exactly.
In any language, you could learn ball. You know.
Yeah, but if you were like, if you were gonna tell someone like up the line, like that means nothing outside of the context of the field. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So you dive into then Venezia. So you're straight in with their Primavera team.
Yes, U19s. That's the U19s. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're straight in with them, straight into making appearances throughout 2021. 13 appearances, 1 goal, 2 assists. Seems like it went well because you made your Serie A debut on the last game of the year. So
it's funny because when I first moved, I was struggling with playing well, not the soccer in Portugal is different to how it is in Italy.
In what way?
So I always say this, where I learned my mentality and my learned tactically in Italy, and I learned kind of skills and freedom and creativity in Portugal. So I kind of had that in Portugal, and it was totally different in Italy. Obviously, there's still skill and creativity, of course in Italy. Look at all the players from Italy. Yeah. But it was more tactical, and I think that is another reason why I think I understand the game well, is because I learned the understanding of the game as well in Italy. Yeah. But I struggled a little bit.
We talked about that with Gennaro a little bit. It kind of feels like the difference is that in Italy, if you aren't tactically up to snuff, you're not playing.
Yeah.
Whereas in Portugal, maybe they we'll give him a little more freedom.
Because he'll dribble by somebody.
Yeah. So we'll stick him in there. But in Italy, it's like if you're not tactically there, like you're sitting there until you've got it.
Exactly.
And Gennaro said he struggled with the same thing when he went to Roma. So yeah.
And so it's just a transition that I mean, every country has their own style of play, and I think, even Italy is still very attacking.
Of course.
It's just they're more focused on like tactically than maybe another country. That's the only difference. They're still
Yeah. So you struggle a little bit then, kind of adapting to that style and everything, but maybe kind of eventually settle
learning how to play in a back five, because they do play a lot of that in Italy, and I never really, like in Portugal it's only 4-3-3, Yeah. So learning how to play in a back five was a struggle, but then you adapt and learn.
Yeah.
But then eventually, once you get used to it, I started to really hit my stride, started to really do well with the Primavera. And then we had a friendly against the first team. And it was just one of those days where I was just on and just playing really well, dribbling by people, doing everything.
Sometimes it just clicks.
Sometimes it clicks, know? And that's why, I think soccer in general, a lot of it's luck. Right time, right moment. Yeah. The directors were watching at the time. The first team the coach was watching, and a couple of days later, I get called up to train with the first team. Getting that text was that's a crazy text.
Around what time was this? This was like spring?
This was April.
Oh, April. Okay,
April.
So
like
we're talking
the season
April
was about to end. Yeah. Or maybe March.
Okay.
Maybe March.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd say March.
Yeah, and haven't trained with the first team at all,
At all.
yet. Yeah.
At all. I actually wasn't even starting when I first got to Venezia with Primavera, which was a struggle because I was like, I'm coming from, one of the best academies in the world. I came here to play. And be the best player. And, so, I could have given up right there and been like, well, maybe it's not for me. But, you just keep going.
Yeah.
So then I got the text, you're training with the first team. I had, some friends and other people on the team have already trained with them. So I'm like, when's my turn?
Yeah.
And then I get called. It was a Tuesday, and I remember it being super hot, and I was like super nervous.
Yeah.
Like I said, keep going. Now I'm even a smaller fish, And I just, again, it clicked. I did really well. So then I get called up for the rest of the week, and then the rest of the season, basically. But then I was actually, they were hinting at or basically saying you were gonna debut against Juventus. I was gonna travel away when they were Allianz Stadium and play against Juventus, but then the coach got fired.
Oh gosh.
So I was like, that's so unlucky. This guy loves me.
Yeah.
But then the Primavera coach who loved me was the interim manager, so he kept me training with the first. Like again, a lot. Like when I got my opportunity, I took it.
Right.
But I got lucky that I was on that certain day.
Yeah.
And then I was doing really well, like playing against Champions League winners who were on the team, and just like that made me realize like I can play at a high level, or maybe the highest level if I'm playing against a Champions League winner.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do this.
Yeah. Who was that on the team?
Michael Cuisance.
Okay.
He didn't get a lot of minutes with but when he won with Bayern in 2020.
Of course.
And he's a very good player. So I'm like, wow, if I could play against him, I could, play against a lot of good players. And then it was the last season of the game, and the second to last game, we got relegated, officially relegated.
Yeah.
So then I could actually play.
Yeah. It didn't matter anymore.
It didn't matter. So I played technically the last minute, but it was 9 minutes of extra time. So I played 10 minutes.
Okay.
In Serie A, which was surreal.
Man, did you just black out?
I don't even remember it. It's insane.
Did I touch the ball? I have no idea.
I actually remember I got tossed. Some player like bodied me. I'm like, the crowd's going crazy, and I was like,
yeah.
You get so pumped up from the crowd. It was what an experience to play. But I remember not fully enjoying it because I remember my thoughts was, all right, what's next? Let's next season.
Yeah.
Which in hindsight, I wish I enjoyed it more.
Yeah, just taking a moment to reflect after. Yeah.
But at the time, I was like, go, go, go.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good thing, but also sometimes you kind of should look back and be proud of yourself sometimes. It's hard to, really give yourself compliments when you're still trying to, when you're a perfectionist,
Yeah, when you're like, well, okay, I've made my Serie A debut, so now next year I need to be with the first team.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
need to be making a few appearances throughout the year. Like, I need to keep
Well,
pushing
especially
on.
We got relegated Serie B. It's a lesser level, so I was thinking
I might be a significant part of this team,
or at least getting some minutes. Come on the last 30 minutes, something.
Yeah.
But that was my mentality, going into it.
There were two other Americans at this time, both Tanner Tessman and Gianluca Busio.
Four technically. It was Jack DeVries.
Oh, Jack DeVries, and then plus you.
Yeah. So those four.
Were you close with those guys at that time, or were they kind of like, because they were with the first team and because you were coming up from the Primaveras, you didn't know them as well?
I would say I was very, very good friends and still friends with Jack DeVries to this day, but Gianluca Busio is a very quiet type of person, so he didn't really talk to anybody that much. He had his friends.
Yep.
But no, I never really was close with Tanner.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was like a little American bubble, or if it would social circles were different. Yeah,
we weren't really welcomed into when I joined. I wasn't really welcomed into the. It's a dog eat dog world.
That is how it is.
That's how it is.
Oh, welcome in. Figure it out. Don't bring the training level down.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like what Joe talked about a little bit. He was like, I got to Dortmund, and he's like, people were trying to throw me out of the session.
Exactly.
I would miss two sitters during a training drill, and they'd be like, get this guy out of here. And that is really truly the mentality across all those European academies. So, so then 2022 rolls around. The team's in Serie B. you had a good season by all accounts, statistics-wise, in the Primavera. You made 13 appearances with 3 goals and 4 assists across all comps. But 13 appearances isn't that many, and there's no first team.
I was training with the first team, and I was on the first team, but I was never getting minutes with the first team.
There's like, when you're one of those in-between guys between the reserve team and the first team, that's when you sort of get screwed a little bit. You're like, I need to be playing games to continue to develop.
But I want to be with the first team.
But I need to be with the first team to continue to develop, and then I'm just stuck in the middle here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it was also difficult because I believed I would have played because the coach really liked me. I had a great preseason. He liked how hard I worked.
It wasn't the same interim. It was a new coach
in.
Yeah.
His name was Ivan Javrčić. He's a Croatian guy. Scary. But he really liked me, and he really liked my work ethic. But we just, from getting relegated, the first 10 games we were 20th, last place. You know, threatening getting relegated again.
Successive relegations.
Exactly. So he's not going to play a player.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he's going to care about himself.
Yeah.
You know, and he has to. I'm not going to, I'm not, there's no disrespect there. I understand where he's coming from. So he's not going to give an opportunity to the youngest player on the team, especially in Italy. They think 25 is young.
Yeah.
You know, so they're like, this 19-year-old he's not part of my plans right now.
Yeah, I'm not putting my job on the line for this unproven 19-year-old.
Exactly.
Like, maybe he's going to be like the next coming of Messi, but more likely he's going to go out there and lose us a few games, and then I'm out.
Or lose a ball and be like, why is this guy playing? And it's like, you're not even thinking right. You're playing this guy. You know, we're trying to win games. You know,
right.
so
yeah.
So that was very difficult to deal with because I was there like working so hard to get minutes, and it was just, I think I was the victim of circumstance.
Yeah.
Which happens.
Yep.
But I was a victim of circumstance positively last year when I debuted.
Right.
So like, you know, it's kind of a give and take.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you're feeling a lot like a training player all year there. You're only making 13 appearances at the Primavera.
Yeah,
so you're like,
played a lot of positions. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely filled in a lot, which helped with understanding the game, learning different positions, seeing the field from different positions. But
you're like part of the scout team, and you're like,
exactly.
I'm a right-footed player playing as a left winger today.
Yeah,
great.
Left back or so. Yeah,
exactly. Okay, so then that year kind of wraps up. The team does end up staying in Serie B.
They fired the Javrčić, and they brought in Paolo Vinoli, who was a very good coach. He kept them alive. Yeah.
Okay. So then they stay, but then going into the 2023 season, you transfer back home to New England Revolution 2, which is some unique circumstances. If you want to dive into how that all came about and went down.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to my agent and thinking about moving back to MLS anyways. And trying to maybe get to a first team because I was still with a first team.
Yeah.
But because I didn't play minutes, it was difficult to, so it was kind of like second team, first team, you know what I mean? So then...
This was the first year of MLS Next Pro as well,
yeah.
right? So you're trying to navigate like, okay, what are these reserve teams going to be
it was,
like?
Exactly.
And,
it was, because I was like, it'd be fine if I get an opportunity because I know, like, I've played with a first team that might be better than an MLS team, or at least the same level, you know. But also my mom was sick, so I think it made sense to not only come back to MLS, but to come back like home to the New England Revolution.
Yeah, and sporting director John Elliott, we'll dive into this a little bit later, but he was at Venezia at the same time as you. So he's spoken a little bit about the fact that it was like, we didn't want to lose Patrick, like we didn't want to send him, but it was like the best situation for him and his family. Like it was like you needed to go home to be with your mom at that time. So so then you land back at the Revolution, and it's weird because you transfer out at the beginning, like in preseason still of Venezia, but you're landing right in the middle of the MLS Next Pro season. So
towards the end, really.
Yeah, like you only had 8 appearances down that stretch as you try to kind of come in as they gear up for the first year of MLS Next Pro playoffs. So what was it like just landing in the middle of a new team, back home, back at this academy that you were at 14 years old?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Full circle moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really great to be home and see everybody and obviously all of that. But it was difficult coming in without a preseason because I had like maybe 4 weeks off and then I was just like, all right, you got to play.
Yeah.
So I was not fit. So I had no fitness. So I did well for,
all things considered. Yeah.
I was really joining more for the next season,
of course,
because it was only 2 months at the end of the season. So I was kind of do as well as you can now, get as fit as you can, and then,
Yeah. Still got to experience a little playoff run though, because we subbed into the
one
first
game away from.
Yeah, you're one team away from playing Val in the final.
Yeah,
so
isn't that funny?
Yeah, you could have wrecked Val's.
I know.
But I think you subbed into those first 2 playoff games, and then you started the last one.
Yep.
Lost 1-0 to Columbus Crew, who played Val in the final.
And Coleman was on the bench in that game. Yep. So I said hi to him.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Isn't that,
Yeah. That's funny how those things go.
Right.
Then you go
it's a small world.
Yeah. Then you go into 2024, and then you're obviously a critical part of the team throughout that entire year.
Minutes,
you play like 24 appearances, 4 goals, 2 assists. You're obviously a central part of the team. I think I saw a stat that you were the 82nd percentile in XG and expected assist at the central midfield position.
Yeah.
So you having a very good season.
I was
very
playing
clearly doing well at this level. But it doesn't seem like the opportunities were there with the first team.
I didn't get any, actually, which everyone else on the team did, except me. I had trained with them once.
Yeah.
And it was actually a friendly game against each other, the second team with the reserves of the first team and the first team, and I played very well, but I think they just had it in their mind the whole time that I wasn't looked at. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you just weren't part of the plans.
Which I was disappointed, obviously, but I wish they gave me more of an opportunity. So then if I didn't take it, they could say, look, you didn't do well.
Right.
But if I was never given an opportunity, it's kind of frustrating to especially being from, I was a player. I'm from Boston, the Boston area, New England area. I have this experience in Europe.
Yeah.
You'd think they'd want to integrate, at least try to see how I would do with the first team who has experience in Europe and who's from New England, but that's just their decision, and that's
sometimes that's how it goes.
That's exactly.
And there's a reason that you're not there anymore, right? Before we leave that time, I think the second team still plays their games in Gillette Stadium as well, right? Did you grow up going to any Revolution games as a kid? So was that cool or anything? Obviously you've played in big stadiums in Europe and all that kind of stuff, but there is something about a homecoming and being oh wow, I used to sit in the stands over there, and now I'm playing on the field.
Well, I remember I was one of the kids that would hold the hands of the players.
Little mascots.
And it was one of the players I was holding. His name is Andrew Farrell, and he was still at the club, so I trained with him.
Oh yeah.
So it's it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, talking about earlier, just reflecting on being a cool moment. Oh,
right.
this is cool. Despite it being a frustrating time, it still is cool that you got those opportunities to sort of represent a hometown team.
Yeah, exactly.
Did it make it challenging? Just obviously you were going home because your mom was sick. Was the off-field stuff challenging as well? Because I think people, and I bring it up because I talked to a lot of people across the office about this. I think we tend to forget that every single player and coach and person involved with the club is also a human being.
Yeah,
they're also
not just the player.
Yeah, they're also going home to their parents or going home to their kids. At the end of the day.
Yeah.
We talk about the international calendar now, where these guys that are playing at the top level in Europe and also playing for the national teams, just when are they seeing their families?
Exactly.
They're just constantly.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's why I bring that up, to be that is obviously a factor in your performance on the field.
Yeah,
so.
I think before my mom passed away, I think it was kind of not thinking about it, just happy being with her.
Yeah.
But there was definitely a struggle. The first 3-4 months playing.
Yeah.
For sure affected. After she passed away, for sure was very difficult to deal with.
Absolutely, because you're going and you would like to believe that you can just oh, I'm back on the field, I can kind of just check out, but that's you're just carrying that weight around with you.
Yeah. Well, it's such a big change in your life. It was a big change in my life.
Yeah.
And also you kind of have to reinvent yourself, because my confidence was from my mom. She always supported me. She always believed in me. So when she was gone, you kind of had I had to just be a totally different person and learn how to support myself. And there's so many things that go in your head that people don't realize. It's not just you're not losing the person, you lose who you are. You lose a little bit of your family members. There's it's a way bigger change than people actually might realize.
Yeah, you referenced earlier that I call my dad for anything soccer, and I would call my mom for anything off the field, and then all of a sudden you don't have that.
Exactly.
You have to recalibrate. Like, I'm sure that first 4 months, you're like, oh, I'll call mom about that. And it's like, I can't. Like,
that was very difficult.
And so as you go through that period, that's super challenging. But so as we move forward and we kind of get up to speed to the present day, you, for obvious reasons, decide you're leaving the Revolution because you need first team minutes and you need to continue your professional career. How does it happen that you end up here in Las Vegas?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to a bunch of clubs actually before I joined Vegas, and I remember my agent told me that John reached out, or they somehow started talking, and then that Vegas was also interested among the other teams. And I knew John obviously from Venezia. I know how he works, and that definitely made joining Vegas easier because it's like I know John, I know how he operates, and it just seemed like a great, place to come. And because of their success last year, and they got last year a lot of midfielders left, so I was like, it seems like the best decision to come here. Yeah,
absolutely. Because I mean, last year is Usman Jabang and JC Ngando both on MLS loans, right? So they're out, and so you're looking to restock that midfield room. It's a great opportunity for someone like you. So, did you have much like face-to-face interaction with John back in Venezia? Like, was there much of a relationship there?
I mean, I remember there was another director there named Alex Menta. I remember me, him, and John, us together went to go watch a Venezia game. We hung out a little bit. So, there's definitely a good relationship there. Yeah. It's one of the main reasons why here was such an easy option.
What was the transition like, arriving in preseason, new head coach, so kind of that's also, I think, an attractive thing for a new player coming in. Right. If you come into a team that does have a new head coach, okay, well, everyone's starting on the same level. I'm not going to be trying to break in over the old coach's favorite central midfielder. So what was that preseason like as you adapted to USL and the team here?
I mean, I think because I played in Italy and I understand where the coach comes from and why he does the things he does, I actually think I had a bit of an advantage because I understood him better than maybe other players who don't know his way. Like right away. I think everyone knows his way now.
But the culture what we talked about earlier, the tactical, the level mentality, of intensity,
the passion, required. And everything, all that. I understood that because I experienced it. But I mean, my main struggle was the heat and the dryness. I got sick like 5 times when I first got here. So that was my main struggle. I think I'm used to it now, hopefully. But that was the biggest struggle, was the how hot and dry it is here.
And that was
being honest.
And that was January and February.
That was January and February.
We've got to attack July and August now. How bad has it been training? It hasn't been too hot
I don't think
yet.
Honestly, now that I do think I'm used to it, you're fine. Once you get used to something, once you have experience, everything's easy with experience.
Elias on one of the last pods said that he got here and threw up because he got here in August.
Yeah, I threw up and went to the hospital. So.
You did.
So
there was a little stretch where they were concerned about you, right? Because you had like a whole it was they were holding you out of training for a little bit.
It's super frustrating because it's like. I'm trying to show who I am as a player, and just have to stop playing because I can't handle it, But hopefully I'm used to it now.
Absolutely. How would you, as we kind of talk about your season individually now and get close to wrapping up, how would you describe your play style? How would you describe yourself as a player?
I think I'm very good on the ball. I play quickly, good technique, and I think I'm a dynamic player, so I think I'm better higher up the field where I could make runs in behind, kind of crash the box and join the attack, put some crosses in. But I think also I'm also good defensively. Sometimes I go too crazy, but I think that's a good and bad thing. I'm very aggressive when I'm defending, so I think I'm a good all around player, but I think better attacking than defending for sure.
To put you on the spot, as you think about the stops in your career and trying to progress your career forward, what is this stop in USL and with Las Vegas for you? Like, what are you hoping to get out of this and be able to take your next step in your career?
I think just playing a lot of professional minutes against men, playing this many games, getting used to playing this many games, and just gaining more experience, learning.
Yeah.
Learning like little details, trying to gain knowledge from the coaches and everything. Just really just add more stuff to my game.
Yeah, I think that's maybe something important to reflect on is that, like, obviously it was academy at Sporting Lisbon, which is a completely different environment. And then it's 2 like back and forth Primavera seasons. And then it's an MLS Next Pro season in which, all fair play to MLS Next Pro, but the environment and the expectations are just not quite there because you're playing with a bunch of academy kids and there's not a lot of
it's less about winning than
there's no pressure.
Right.
There's no like, we have to get a result today.
There's no relegation.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for like, you've played 10 games across all competitions so far this season, and hopefully you continue to stay healthy and log 30, 40 games. That'll be the first time in your career you've truly done that at a professional
That's
level.
what I would like to add to my career.
And you learn a lot through that process.
Yes, you too.
Yeah.
You learn when to push and when to maybe when to relax.
Yeah, absolutely. Eunice was talking about like how much he learned, like trying to like take care of his body, locking in like, okay, how much time do I need to spend in the training room?
He does love a good stretch.
Yeah, it seems it. He seems to be that guy that has his routine and
he
don't mess with his routine.
No. Hey, it works though. So
yeah, fair enough. He's staying healthy for the most part. Yeah. He's played a lot of games at a fairly young age. As you've settled in here off the field, who are the guys you're closest to? Who are you spending time with?
Honestly, a good amount of people.
Yeah.
You feel I can name half the team.
You feel like the guy that's just bouncing across the locker room. Like you're kind of in everything.
I mean, there are like certain groups. I mean, I would say Jack, Rory, Coleman, he's roommate. So
with Coleman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coleman, Nate, Carver comes over a lot. I mean, my apartment's the hangout spot.
Yeah.
I mean, later Turner and Shafter come over.
Okay.
Which is a new one though.
Yeah.
But Shaft got a new dog, so I'm trying to see the dog.
Oh yeah, he's fostering.
Yeah,
right?
He's fostering a bunch of dogs, so I'm trying to see that. Vaughn, Elias, and Gennaro went golfing with them a couple times. So
they're a dynamic trio.
They're a dynamic trio. Yeah. I joined them, good fourth, but I go back and forth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you just complete the foursome for golf, and that's pretty much where it is.
But yeah, honestly, we have a great team, and I think that's another positive for us is that we're not. Let's calm down. We have very good players. Everyone gets along. So like, once it clicks, I think it's gonna click.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we have a great team. So
yeah, half the battle sometimes you got to have like a group that's together.
Yeah.
If you have a group that's really fractured we've all been part of teams that are like that, and it just makes everything like a
way worse.
Impossibility.
It makes it way worse.
Yeah. And then when things start to go wrong in a group like that,
it gets even worse.
It can get really bad.
Exactly.
But in a group that's pretty together and enjoys spending time with each other off the field and those kinds of things, when things go bad, it's much easier to stay together.
Like I forgot somebody.
Uh-oh. Start thinking hard. Pull out your phone, look up the roster.
Right. Knight. There you go.
Yeah,
Knight.
Okay. He would have been upset with you.
Knight. Even Nikki, but everybody, man.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, well, you'll have to start pushing on Coleman as your roommate. I've been stopped by fans after games saying that they want Coleman on the pod. So
really?
So I'm just waiting for Coleman to get healthy.
He'd be great on the pod.
Well, would he be? I don't know. I've pulled Coleman from media availabilities before, and this man, I think, makes it his personal mission to give me answers in as few words as possible.
Yeah.
So he might just.
I don't think he enjoys them. Enjoys it. You know what I mean?
He definitely doesn't. He hates it, and he makes sure I know about it.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see in this environment. It might just be the shortest pod of the year.
But for sure.
I'll be asking a lot of questions.
Be a good 20 minutes though.
Yeah. He's got a lot going on too, so that'll be interesting. I always finish with this question, Patrick, because we spend a lot of time going through the entire journey of your career and your different stops. So having done that and talked through and reflected on some memories you maybe haven't thought about in a while, does anything come to mind to you that's, looking back on your journey to this point, something that was special or shaped you or formed you in a way that you're like, wow, that I remember that stop or that experience or some theme has really shaped where I am today?
I mean, there's definitely, I think there's one at each stop, each team. Definitely getting the call up and transitioning to the first team at Venezia was like a huge mental shift. Of like, wow, maybe I can do this, and I actually and doing well in training makes me think, wow, I actually can play at a high level with good players. At Sporting, it was definitely I think I had a coach who really, really cared about me and was like, gave me confidence, and he kind of taught me confidence, like on and off the field. So there's a bunch of moments that I could think of, but definitely transitioning to the first team would be the biggest one.
Yep. Which drops the theme real well, right? Of being in a first team now, being a critical part of the team, start to rack up those games.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, Pat, thanks for the time. Really enjoyed
Thanks for
this. Next up for Pat, next game for him is San Antonio FC away this Saturday on June 7th. You can catch that game on Triple SEN and ESPN Plus. And then the boys are back home against Monterey Bay. $2 beer night, college night. So come join us. Get yourself some Firmino, get yourself some Flo. Doing his job for our sponsors right here. But thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.